Welcome to the 11cast podcast. Today we are joined via Skype with Future Fossils. First episode today. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing okay. What's your real name?
Michael Garfield.
All right. And why were you named Michael?
I think my mother just decided it was a pretty name, but it's a weird thing, you know. The name Michael Gregory Garfield, if you take it apart etymologically,
Right.
means who is like God, the watchful triangular field.
Huh.
It's a question and an answer. The Gregory, as in the Gregorian monks that kept vigil, the watch. Garfield, like the gar fish. Gar is I think Old English for a spear, like a triangular plot of land, a Garfield. And then Michael is, Hebrew. So when you put it together, you get who is like God, the eye on the pyramid, the watchful triangular field, a symbol of divinity. So it's a weird sort of metaphysical, esoteric statement, but I don't think that's what my parents intended.
Yeah, well, it's cool to hear your own intentions, you know. Such a common name, but I've never heard that. I've never heard another Michael give me that description of the name Michael. But I know a lot of Michaels. And so, your first name is Michael, your last name is Garfield. Do you like lasagna, and did you like the comic Garfield?
Yes, and yes.
And I'm sure you get that question all the time. What is the last name?
No.
What does Garfield mean? Do you know the etymology of that, or?
Yeah. It's Garfield, the watchful triangular field. It's spear.
Oh,
it's an English.
Okay.
It's an English name.
So your first and your last name combined together are like this sort of esoteric thing that your parents didn't intend.
Right.
Okay.
I think the point of that is that each of us represent the distillate of the conjunction of innumerable causes, and that you are far more intentional than you are.
Okay. That was a little too woke for me at this hour of the morning. But when I listen back later, I'll try to be in touch with what you just said. So you do this thing called the Future Fossils podcast. I got it up right now. Easiest way for people to find it's on iTunes. But what does Future Fossils mean? What does the name mean, first of all?
Well, you take these videos in a vertical format because you're trying to future-proof your podcast. You're trying to ensure that it will work for people that don't exist yet or that aren't listening yet, for a format that you expect to expand. Future Fossils is intended with the same spirit. It is a show to record the human condition and to do my best to preserve valuable conversations about what we're going through right now collectively for the post-human archaeologists that will be sifting through the records of our digital society. You know, it's
so
if you think about,
a very future audience in mind. You have an audience that we don't even know, perhaps.
Well, I mean, it's a double thing, right? Because it's important, I think, for people to have a sort of conversational out-of-body experience and step outside of themselves and see the role that we are playing on the planet evolutionarily at this time.
Yeah.
Bigger picture.
Okay.
So I say it's for the future audience, but really it's for the current audience to role play the future audience.
And they're fossils, and how is it fossils?
Well, I mean, probably only 1% of the organisms that have ever lived have left a fossil.
But do you think a podcast can leave a digital fossil? Do you think that the fossils of the future will be digitized?
Well, so the fossil is the podcast is in conjunction with a book I'm writing called How to Live in the Future, which you can find at medium.com/@Michael Garfield.
Okay.
To your question, there is the most recent chapter of the book, The Future Acts Like You. And in that, I talk about how each of us is already creating a trace fossil of all of our activities online. That whether we realize it or not, everything we do is leaving a digital record. And that in the future, it will become easier to coordinate and assemble all of these digital records that we've left across this myriad of platforms to create a cast or an impression of the sum total of human activity on the internet. So you'll be able to create a sort of, like when a worm digs a tube in the silt, you will have a similar kind of cast or mold of all of the records that you've left, all of the things that you've done. Because we've created this perfect medium for recording.
Okay. So now that we know what your name is, the name of your podcast, what is the podcast about?
This podcast is about everything. I interview artists, philosophers, science fiction authors, scientists, futurists. It's just a way to invite people into a conversation about how their work slots into the big picture. So recently I had Armin Ellis, who is a former mission architect for the NASA JPL. He did, the Mars rover and International Space Station supply mission architect work. And, before him, I've had Michael Strong.
The Future of Education.
Yeah. He's a radical and an innovator in the sphere of innovation of education. Before him was Lydia Violet, who does deep ecology work with Joanna Macy and plays violin for like Polish Ambassador and a bunch of bands. And she has a really interesting perspective on music and the role of music in collective process of grief, collective healing work. So she had a very, every one of them is totally different. Episode 81 was Arthur Brock, who is the visionary behind Holochain, which is a blockchain-like encryption and distributed systems project that is based on the living world and fractal evolutionary systems. So I consider it kind of that particular project probably the future of digital security and of currency. But the point is that every one of these is somebody who's working on something with legacy value. Somebody that is working on something they really intend to leave a better world than they entered or came from.
Okay. Looks really interesting. There's a lot of cool guests. Is there a particular theme or sort of mantra behind the show, or recurring theme or genre that you...
The mantra is be good ancestors.
Be good ancestors. That's interesting. Very interesting. So I've got the website. I've looked at your Twitter, which is @MichaelGarfield. What's up with this with this photo of you on Twitter with that's actually you wearing Google glasses, or?
Yeah, that's me at Burning Man in 2013. If you go to my YouTube channel, you can find a series of videos called Message to Your Future Self, which I did before I started this podcast, through Google Glass using the 10-second auto video record feature. So I did 10-second micro interviews with dozens of people at Burning Man that year.
Oh, very cool.
I used it as part of I was beta testing Google Glass. And
so you don't wear it anymore?
So they do.
I mean, you don't wear it anymore personally.
It's in the closet right now.
Okay. Because I was looking at that picture and I was like, it looks like a futuristic Clint Eastwood.
Thank you.
That's the kind of impression. I was like, when I was looking up your handle, I was like, that can't be you. But Burning Man, that's a whole can of worms, and I'd love to attend someday, but I don't know if I have the courage or the funds at this point to do that. All right, so we are at 10 minutes Now we kind of have an idea of your name, your podcast name, what you do, what the podcast is about, some of your work. Outside of work, do you have a regular job, and or what are things you enjoy doing in life aside from Future Fossils podcast?
Future Fossils is just the node at the tip of a whole network of creative projects.
Yeah.
I am a professional painter. I actually started in Colorado. And
Did you paint this dragon behind you?
I did, yeah.
That is very cool.
I've been a so-called visionary artist for
like
about 10 years.
Alex Gray type level. This is really
I'm not
cool.
at Alex Gray's level, but Alex Gray is a friend and an inspiration.
I would love to get Alex or Allison on here because, I mean, not only are they just amazingly talented visionary artists, but they also have a lot of great things to say.
Truly.
Okay, so we got about 15 seconds left here. Outside of your projects in life, what are the simple things you enjoy in life?
Yoga.
All right. Well, thank you, Michael, for coming on the podcast. Future Fossils on iTunes. Time waits for no one. 11 cast out.